so now we're looking at how we can use an input to control an output. So what I have here is the button setup that we just talked about in the last video. We also have an LED hooked up to pin 13, which you can go back and watch that video if you want to figure out how to set that up. All right, so these are two separate components. They're both using the power rail, ground, and some voltage, but the main idea is pin 7 is going to the button and pin 13 is going, and that's going to be important when we write the code, okay? So if we go over to the last bit of code we wrote, which is somewhere around here. Here it is this one. That is the video. That is iMovie. Button setup, okay. Here's the code that we wrote just in the last video to read the button. And I think it's still running in the background. Yes, let's check that. 1, 2, yeah, okay. So now we want something to happen. We want when the button is 1, we want to turn on a LED, and when the button is 0, we want to turn off the LED. So we have to add in another pin mode to include the button. And it has to be set to an output, or it won't set in the full voltage to it. So this is an important part. If you have a dim LED, it's because maybe your pin mode wasn't set up correctly. So this one's the LED. Of course, I could int LED, let's call LED 1 13, and let's start doing this. Let's start using variables for all of our pins. Let's just call it button pin is equal to 7. Oops. Okay. Button pin. Just make sure you're typing it the same way as you are your variable. And this would be button pin. Okay, so I just changed the pin 7 to button pin in case I need to move pin numbers around. All right. So I've got the LED to output. That's all I needed to do to set up the pin mode for 13 as an output. And then we come down here, and we're going to use a logic statement called an if statement. It's very common in programming. If something is true that is in these parentheses, if something is true in these parentheses, small program. So, and that small program is going to be in its own set of curly brackets. Remember, void setup has its own curly brackets, and this is the program it runs for void setup, which is just run once. Void loop has its own curly brackets, one at the beginning, one at the end, and it highlights them. And this is the program it's going to run over and over. If statement is like its own mini program. It will run what's in the curly brackets if the statement is true. So if button state is equal, and equal just means it's an absolute, and we can get into logic statements like greater than or equals or greater than, but there's only two states that the button state can be in it, 0 or 1, and you want to use an absolute. So you could type if button state equals 1, if button state equals high, it's the same thing. Then it will run this program. And that's it. So an if statement has a parentheses with a statement in it. If the statement is true, then it will run it. You can also add, an and statement and then add another statement, so that two things need to be true in order for an if statement to run the program. But for right now, we're just looking for the is it higher or is it 1? Run this program. So then we can digital write to the LED 1, and we want to turn it high. Put a semicolon off of it. It's good to note that the if statement in its parentheses does not have a semicolon because it's a logic statement. So it doesn't need the semicolon. It will tell you that if you put a semicolon in it. It just has the curly brackets, okay? This will work if you press the button, it should turn high. If you let go of the button, it should go low. But it's good to have a statement in here saying either have another statement that says, hey, if it's not being pressed, make it go low, like this. Okay. There's also a way that you can have, if you want it to happen for sure, if this is not true, you can use an else statement, which is its own program. It doesn't have any parentheses with any statements in it. It just means if this if statement is not true, it'll do this. So what we're going to do is, as we press the button, this is going to become true. It'll run this program. The LED will be on. As soon as you let go of it, this statement is not true, and it just goes to the else statement, and it prints this. Okay. All right. I'm going to upload the code, see if I made any mistakes, and looks fine. All right. Thank you. Try it and see if it works. Okay, so you just completed setting up your LED. You're looking at your serial. You can see. What are some things you can do to kind of challenge yourself and make this code a little bit more interesting or complex? Well, obviously one thing you could do is add a second LED. Maybe on pin 12, or possibly 3 LEDs. But every time you add a new pin, you need a new pin mode. Again, if you forget things, it will tell you. And let's say you just wanted to have a digital write to LED pin 12 or LED 2, and you want it to go low while the button is pressed, and you want it to go high when the button is not pressed, so that you can get like some feedback on whether the button is being pressed or not. Also, I could go into a little bit about how serial print works. Because it's in this top part of the loop, it runs all the time, whether the if statement is being met or the else statement is being met. So what you could do is you could just move it to in the statement, and if you wanted to, you could add another statement like serial.println right here. I took the ln off this one because I don't want it to return yet. I want it to tell me LED is on. Just want to say that again. And then I'm going to copy and paste this down here to the else statement, because I want it to, if it's not being met, I want it to say it's off. Okay. And I can run that. And then when I run the serial monitor, ooh, something is interesting up here. Let's see. Oh, I know what it is. I've got 3 sections of serial print. So it's printing this one all the time. It's printing, so if I go up here, I need to take out this serial. I only want it to print when the if statement is being met and the else statement. So if I run this code, I have to run the code. Every time I make a change, I need to hit the upload button again. Open the serial monitor. It's telling me the button is 0. I'm in the else statement. Press the button. Now I'm in this if statement. On, off. It's really just logic. But as you build your code, you might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows telling you what the buttons are doing, what the potentiometer is saying, what the ultrasonic sensor is saying, what the light meter is saying, so that you can tell what your numbers are and what is being digitally read, and the status of all your variables as well. It's good to know what your variables are saying. Thank you.